nature's energy. Nature's energy.
The people of the Northern Territory have developed a colourful lifestyle and live in harmony as a diverse ethnic community. Many people are settling here from overseas and interstate, making it the fastest growing area in Australia. The population of 150,000 is concentrated in two main centres, 23,000 in Alice Springs and more than 70,000 in Darwin. Alice Springs is a major tourist centre, being the principal destination for thousands of international and interstate tourists who come to the centre to visit Ayers Rock, the Olgas and many other majestic landforms that are unique to Central Australia. Darwin is the capital of the Northern Territory, a thriving city with a cosmopolitan heart. The Northern Territory has already attracted many major investors from overseas, and with the growth of Darwin's Trade Development Zone, interest in the Territory will continue to increase. The Territory has immense untapped potential. Tourism has established itself as the Territory's second largest industry. Mineral exploration has confirmed that the Territory has a major share of the world's high-grade uranium, bauxite and manganese reserves, as well as significant deposits of oil, gas, gold, silver, lead, zinc, copper and tin. The Territory's principal agricultural industries are cattle and beef, fishing, horticulture and aquaculture. The Port of Darwin is the principal deepwater port in the north of Australia. It incorporates a modern container handling centre and one of the world's largest roll-on, roll-off wharves to cope with the region's tidal movements. The Northern Territory government has encouraged development in the private sector. In the years since self-government in 1978, the workforce has grown by 40% and new industries have flourished. Hand in hand with this rapid growth has been an increase in the demand for electricity, and it soon became obvious that the development of a cheap energy source was essential to this continuing growth. The commissioning of the Channel Island gas-fired power station marks the culmination of a dream for many people, an achievement in technology, and an act of faith by those people who believed it possible. The dream for the Northern Territory to have control over its own supply of energy from a competitively priced indigenous source. The reality? Gas from the Amadeus Basin in Central Australia, transported through a 1,500 kilometre pipeline to Darwin, allowing the Northern Territory to utilise its own supply of energy. A gas pipeline supplying major centres along its route. An energy spine serving power generation facilities in Katherine, Tennant Creek and Darwin, as well as other customers along the way. The story began back in the 60s when gas was discovered in Palm Valley, although the extent of the deposit was not investigated fully until the 1980s because there was simply no market for such isolated reserves. It was more than 20 years after this discovery that this gas was to become the main energy source for the Northern Territory. During those years, the power station at Stokes Hill in Darwin was fired by expensive heavy oil imported from Singapore. In April 1980, planning began for a new coal-fired power station, with coal to be delivered from Australia's east coast. All fuel options were considered at the time, but all but coal was rejected. Natural gas was rejected primarily because adequate reserves had not been proven and the cost of delivery to Darwin was prohibitive. The decision to build a coal-fired power station was not an easy one. A coal operation would be expensive. Channel Island was the site chosen for the new power station. (1981), and the site on Channel Island was one of the largest earthworks projects ever undertaken in the Northern Territory. In Central Australia, the gas story was unfolding and the reserves at Palm Valley were being reassessed. 18 years after the discovery of natural gas, commercial sales of small quantities of gas were made from Palm Valley to the Northern Territory Electricity Commission in Alice Springs. A 200mm pipeline was constructed to supply the gas to the power station in Alice Springs. Entec gained first-hand experience in generating electricity with gas. In December 1983, AGL, the major distributor of natural gas in New South Wales, developed the concept of using gas from the Amadeus Basin in Central Australia to fuel a gas turbine power station in Darwin. In other parts of Australia, a significant improvement in industrial relations and increasing Australian experience were changing the pipeline industry. The estimated cost of a 1,500 kilometre pipeline link between the Amadeus Basin and Darwin was falling. But by this time, the Northern Territory Electricity Commission was committed to the coal project. However, investigations into the gas plan continued, and in April 1984, a hold was placed on the coal-fired power station project so that a definitive study on the use of gas could be undertaken. Time was critical, as the new power station had to be operational by the end of 1986. In December 1984, the gas decision was made. The Territory Government committed Channel Island Power Station to natural gas fuel. The race was on. Time was of the utmost importance.
Nature's energy.
On the 28th of June 1985, the former Chief Minister, Mr. Ian Tuxworth, and the then Minister for Mines and Energy, Mr. Marshall Perrin, signed agreements relating to the supply of gas to the Northern Territory Electricity Commission.
Nature's energy.
Members of NT Gas Proprietary Limited had worked feverishly with four major trading banks, the ANZ, National Australia, Commonwealth and Westpac, to arrange the leveraged lease financing package. The estimated total cost of the project, including interest during construction at that time, was $380 million, making it the largest leveraged lease ever financed wholly in Australia by Australian banks. These events occurred after only 6 months of negotiations. By signing the contracts before the 30th of June 1985, completion of the pipeline by the end of 1986 became possible, and the project also became eligible for the Commonwealth Government's investment allowance. Had this investment allowance not been available, the project may never have gone ahead. NT Gas Proprietary Limited was formed to build and operate the gas pipeline. The company is owned by some of the cream of Australia's industry, with the major shareholders AGL, CSR and Mooney Oil, bringing to the project significant expertise in pipeline construction and management. Through Associated Pipelines Limited, CSR operates the 440-kilometre Roma to Brisbane gas pipeline. The Australian Pacific Fertiliser plant at Gibson Island, near Brisbane, is one of the biggest consumers of natural gas from that line. AGL owns and operates the natural gas trunk line reticulation system, supplying Sydney, Newcastle and Wollongong. The AGL Control Centre in Mortlake not only monitors the supply pipeline, but the massive distribution network of natural gas to the Sydney metropolitan area and beyond to regional centres. The Mooney Oil Company, now known as TMOC Resources Limited, operates the Mooney to Brisbane pipeline in Queensland. It operates the oil pipeline to its refinery south of Alice Springs and controls and operates the Mereenie oil field, which will also provide gas for Channel Island. The contracts, entered into on the 28th of June 1985, included the provision for construction of a spur line to the Mereenie field and the oversizing of the main pipeline to Mataranka. This decision gave the Territory the security of two sources of gas, and the larger pipeline meant that potential markets could be served. In Central Australia, drilling had begun at Palm Valley number 6. Everyone hoped that this would be the big one and hit pay dirt, and it did. Number 6 well flowed at a record rate, indicating that there was an uninterrupted fuel source for NTEC for many years to come. Magellan Petroleum operates the Palm Valley field, which is owned by the Palm Valley Joint Venture. The site of Palm Valley number 6 is on a ridge overlooking the valley known for its oasis of palms, the valley that gave the whole area its name, and one of the most beautiful sights in Central Australia. Williams Brothers CMPS engineers were officially appointed as engineer manager for the project. Williams Brothers and CMPS engineers became a joint venture in 1971 for the design and management of the Moomba to Sydney gas pipeline. This and subsequent ventures have been so successful that today the company is a leader in providing engineering and project management services to the oil and gas industry. The difficult task given to Williams Brothers was to build a pipeline over some of the most diverse countryside in this nation, a route that crossed 12 degrees of latitude and spanned wide ranges of climatic conditions. The pipeline route could not follow road or railway corridors and also had to avoid future major earthworks and populated areas for security reasons. The pipeline and right-of-way corridor could only occupy a strip 30 metres wide. Another undertaking by Williams Brothers CMPS as engineer managers was the negotiations which affected landowners to secure an easement for right-of-way through their land. Also, careful attention was given to environmental management. Everyone was concerned that native animals and plants were disturbed as little as possible and that there would be rapid rehabilitation of the natural environment. In July 1985, the contract for the construction of the first spread from Darwin to Helling was awarded to Newham International, and construction began.
We're building a pipeline for you and me. We're building a pipeline for this mighty territory.
The Territory's pipeline story was involving people right across the nation. The pipe for the project began here at BHP's Kembla Grange Steelworks. Coils of strip steel were manufactured from precast ingots. The high-grade steel used for the project was made to the Australian pipeline industry standards to meet design operating requirements.
We're building a pipeline for you and me. We're building a pipeline for this mighty territory. We're building a pipeline for you and me. We're building a pipeline for this mighty territory.
These coils were delivered to Tubemaker's Kembla Grange factory. The contract to produce the pipe for the Northern Territory pipeline created additional employment at Tubemaker's plant for 60 people for at least 16 months. The steel was manufactured into more than 92,000 18-metre lengths of pipe. Stringent quality control ensured that the weld in each pipe was to the required standard. Every pipe was subjected to a water pressure test and an ultrasonic test. Now, on to the nearby Shaw Industries coating plant. Here the pipe was sandblasted to give a clean, bare metal surface suitable for the adhesion of the coating. Mastic was applied to seal the metal surface against moisture and corrosion. The pipe was then coated with a high-density polyethylene coating which was extruded over the pipe to form a uniform 1.5mm coating. This jacket gives protection against corrosion once the pipe is in the ground. The pipe was ready to begin the long journey to outback Australia, first by truck to the rail yards at Unanderra, where it was loaded onto specially designed wooden bearers ready for the rail haul to Alice Springs. Then loaded onto road trains at Alice for the long journey to the stockpile sites. Back in the top end of the territory, timing was once again important. Construction crews had to beat the 85-86 wet season. Based at the first camp at Acacia Gap, 30 kilometres south of Darwin, the crews worked 10-hour shifts, 28 days on, 7 days off, in searing, back-breaking conditions. Right on schedule, the pipeline crossed the Adelaide River. In the wet, such a crossing would have been virtually impossible. Contracts were let for the remaining spreads. Elling to Buchanan Highway and the Mereenie Spur Line went to Saipem Australia Proprietary Limited. Buchanan Highway to a point west of Wycliffe Well to McConnell Dow Constructors Limited. And Wycliffe Well to Palm Valley to Transfield PBM. This meant that work could proceed on all spreads during 1986, immediately after the wet season threat to construction had ended. Construction schedules were tight. To be on time, crews had to average between 3 and 4 kilometres per day. The top end of the Northern Territory has some of the most breathtaking scenery in Australia. The Katherine Gorge lies only 320 kilometres south of Darwin. Its beauty is ageless and spectacular. Because of the variability of terrain, problems encountered in the top end were not always the same as those further down the line. Engineers face some of their most difficult tasks in the Katherine area. The pipeline crossed the Katherine River downstream from the township. The Katherine River is a peaceful lady in the dry season, one of the reasons that this major crossing was scheduled for the middle of the top end dry. The crossing was not easy. A heavy rock formation had to be blasted, and a dragline was used to remove several large tree stumps. The pipeline, in its special concrete casing, crossed the Katherine River on the 7th of August 1986. Then a successful restoration program was undertaken to restore the crossing site. A particular engineering problem in the area between Katherine and Newcastle waters was the natural occurrence of sinkholes. These natural holes are associated with the area's geological makeup. Some are up to 100 metres wide and 5 metres deep, and they occur in clusters. Experts in geophysics help the engineers map a safe route through the sinkhole country. At Newcastle waters, the pipeline had to be put through an area of black soil, a self-mulching soil that could have put stress on the polyethylene coating of the pipe. The pipe was laid 1.2 metres below the level of the black soil. This is almost twice the usual depth that the pipe is normally laid. Spread 4 between Palm Valley and Wauchope, and the pipeline had to cross the spectacular McDonnell Ranges. Crossing the McDonnell Ranges, many areas had to be blasted before the trench could be excavated. For the pipeline to operate safely and efficiently, a massive communications network was needed. In April 1986, a $6 million contract was entered into between Telecom and NT Gas Proprietary Limited. Now that the pipeline is operational, the communications link provides the control centre with total operating information. Mobile radio communication allows a comprehensive coverage over the entire length of the pipeline. Telemetry data monitors and controls the gas flow, and internal telephone lines provide voice communications to all the important stations along the route from the gas control centre at Palmerston, just outside Darwin. This $1.2 million building was formally started in May 1986 by Barry Calder, Minister for Mines and Energy. The centre is headquarters for NT Gas Proprietary Limited and is the operations centre for the entire pipeline. One of the most modern control centres in Australia, it incorporates a $1 million supervisory control and data acquisition, or SCADA, system. This computerised system will remotely monitor the 7 major operating stations that meter and regulate the gas, and 10 scraper stations located along the pipeline. The scraper stations are used when necessary to send cleaning and instrument pipeline gauges, known as pigs, along the line. A cathodic protection system is installed to ensure that all below-ground pipe is protected against corrosion. The last 2 major sections of the pipeline were joined at the Buchanan Highway, about 650 kilometres south of Darwin. This was the meeting point of spreads 2 and 3, and an exciting stage was set as the crews of McConnell Dowell and Saipem raced towards the final weld. It was a remarkable finish, ahead of schedule, for this massive job when the last section was joined. With welding completed, congratulations and champagne were in order, a celebration in true territory style. The availability of natural gas and competitively priced electricity in Darwin and along the pipeline route will certainly stimulate development in the Northern Territory. Natural gas can replace other fuels as an energy source in many applications. The Amadeus Basin to Darwin natural gas pipeline may eventually become a key element in a gas distribution network. Gas coming ashore from the Tern and Petrel fields in the Bonaparte Gulf could be sent down the Territory's pipeline to the Sydney and Adelaide markets.
Nature's energy.
The Amadeus Basin to Darwin gas pipeline is a credit to all those involved in its successful completion.
Nature's energy. Nature's energy.
Australia has the resources and the people to build an energy supply system for the 21st century. And one of the most important links in that development is the Northern Territory's Amadeus Basin to Darwin gas pipeline. Now, with this secure supply of energy, the Northern Territory is ready for further growth and development that will see Australia's last frontier mature into statehood.